What is up, everybody? CP and SJ with you again for another week of Every Day. We're covering picks for you here. Week number 8 of the college football season. We're geared up, hopefully, for another good week. We've had 2 back-to-back strong weeks of picks here for you. We plan on doing the same again, SJ. Should be a lot of fun to take in some more good games this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the lines go, I guess we can play a couple of underdogs here this week, but we figured we might as well strike while the iron's hot and we're on a roll here, and let's go ahead and see how it shakes out this week.
Yeah, and I liked a lot of games that I took a look at here this week. Honestly, it was kind of hard for me to narrow down the main ones I wanted to roll with here. But I guess I'll kick it off here. We'll just go back and forth because I think we've got lots of different ones to let you know about this week. But I'm going to start with the Green Wave Tulane. They are on taking on Rice. They're 22-point favorites. Rice has been really down and out kind of here this year, and Tulane has been a really strong team, played tough games even against their toughest opponents. So I'm going to go with Tulane to cover that 22, even though it's a big number, and start the day off right, hopefully.
Yeah, I'll start with I guess an early kicks, 11 a.m. here, local time. Miami and Louisville. I kind of thought maybe this would be maybe for the conference even at one point or heading into the preseason, but it probably isn't the case, at least for the Louisville side. Of course, Miami needs to keep winning. I'm gonna go ahead and take Miami to cover. 5 is the line I got them at. They're obviously undefeated, coming in 6-0, and they have won some close games. Their last 2 are within a score. It would be under that 5-point mark, so we don't want a repeat of that. I think they won by like 4-2 or 4-3, something like that. So we want to hit that 6 points. Let's get a touchdown win. But I think Miami can do that. I think their close calls are maybe behind them. That's how I'm looking at it, and I think it might be a little bit easier win this week. Maybe a 10-point, even a 14-point win.
Yeah, I think law of averages would say they're due for a more normal contest.
Yeah, they had some funny endings there.
The next one I'm going to roll with here is another 2:30 kickoff. That Tulane game was 2:30, by the way, too. But 2:30 game. And this is one that a lot of people will probably pay attention to just because of the names. I don't necessarily think it's as big of a game as we probably thought it would be a couple weeks ago. But number 7 Alabama is at number 11 Tennessee. I just feel like this sets up really well for Alabama to finally play a good game. You know, they've struggled here these last 2 weeks. It hasn't looked great. But you know, South Carolina, a formidable foe, and they gave them a run last week. But Tennessee really struggled in that game against Florida. I know that's kind of a traditional rival, but it goes to overtime. That's a game that kind of takes it out of you a little bit. I just feel like it sets up for Alabama to be able to cover, and they only need to cover 3. So I'm going to take the Crimson Tide to cover that one.
Well, I mean, you look at Alabama; they had that tough game against Georgia. Then, of course, the upset to Vanderbilt. So I'm sure there's a little bit of a hangover from that, but they still able to get the win. So yeah, I think they'll definitely have their full attention on Tennessee. So that's a nice pick. I'm going to stick to that afternoon time frame here as well. A big number as well, kind of similar to your first pick. A&M is a 17.5-point favorite over Mississippi State, and I mean, just got to be honest, Mississippi State's just really bad. I don't know if you saw the clip of the safety or cornerback kind of half-ass in that tackle. Was not a good look, and just kind of explains how their season's gone. And A&M obviously on a 5-game win streak. And then you look at last week, 41-10 over Missouri, which a lot of people saw that one coming. So just kind of on the strength of that, Mississippi State's been bad, and a 5-game losing streak on that side. It's kind of a recipe here to maybe actually get one of these, larger in-conference covers.
Yeah, I like that play a lot. That's another one that I wrote down. I just think that A&M is just playing so well right now. And then, like you said, comparatively, Mississippi State is almost a train wreck at this point. So, yeah, that's a pretty good one there. The next one I'm going to go with is one of the early kind of darlings of the season, just because of the way they were scoring points. James Madison, they're laying 9.5 against Georgia Southern. It hasn't been quite as flashy for them here recently, but I think they do well here in this game. Georgia Southern's kind of been a mediocre team at best, and James Madison hopefully will be ready to put some more points up again for that 3:00 kick. So I'm going to get him to win by 10 or more, and that'll get me home.
Shift over to the evening. I got a couple more afternoon picks, but I want to or at least one more afternoon pick, but I want to shift to a game a little more confident, and I'm going to get those out of here. And that's LSU minus 2.5 is what last time I played. I seen they were at -2 at one point, and that's one of those things you wait an hour and it changes on you. So I don't necessarily. I mean, I'm still confident in it, but I'd rather have obviously anybody would. Besides that, half points always kind of a little bit leery there, but I think we'll be okay here still. Basically, I just think LSU is the better team overall, general. Kind of, just a general thought here on that game, but also Arkansas. This will be their third straight top 25 opponent. I know they've played well, but eventually it's going to get you, and that's a I know last week the win over Tennessee, was pretty impressive, but week after week after week it just kind of gets you, and that's the nature of the deal here with these bigger conferences. Every week there's no off weeks. Even before, I know a lot of times I wanted to say like, oh, every week's a grind, is tough. Like now I think you can actually say that. There were some off weeks before. There was still, the Vandy's and the Kentuckys and that type of thing. Now it's you better have your A game almost every week.
Yeah, that'll be a fun game to watch. That atmosphere, I think, is going to be awesome down there at night in Fayetteville. Should be a good game, but that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I do like taking a peek at that. The next game I'm going to roll with is also kind of a late afternoon game, 3:00 kick. And Texas Tech, Baylor, usually a pretty heated rivalry type game because they're those two kind of outlier Texas schools, playing a little bit further away from the big metros. And I think they feel sometimes a little bit slighted because of that. But they have a fun rivalry. But I just think Texas Tech is the better team. They've played pretty good since the early portion of the season. And I think they've gotten better as the season's gone along, whereas Baylor, wheels are kind of falling off. They just don't have enough to go a full 4 quarters, and that's where I think this gets them. So it's just a 6.5 point, win by a touchdown. I think Tech does that. I'm going to go with the Red Raiders.
Oh, here's got a couple underdog specials, if you will. I'm still taking the points. I'm not getting too crazy. We're not going out, right? But we'll start back to the afternoon slate there. And Houston is a 5.5 point dog against Kansas. Neither obviously has had very great, great seasons, or especially with Kansas. I mean, they started ranked, right? They were a top 25 team coming in. I know that was the strength of last year, but still, you wouldn't have thought such of a steep fall off. But here we are. But, I know Houston's only got 2 wins coming in, but those 2 wins have come in the last 4 games. So they're at least, playing somewhat of a, putting a decent product on the field. Where on the other hand, you have Kansas, 5 straight losses. The only win is that opening one against Lindenwood. So they're just going in the wrong direction. And I don't necessarily think it's a talent thing. They're just kind of, something's off there. I don't know if it's scheme or what it is. And maybe they just kind of got a little bit too high on the hog there with that last season, and thought maybe they could just show up and put that same product out there. And it doesn't always work that way. So I do think Houston will cover that number. I would not be surprised if they went outright just because of the way Kansas has kind of fallen off this last few games. But I'll go ahead and take that 5.5 points just to not be too crazy. We don't want to, we don't want to get a little too much greed here on this side.
Yeah. I like that. I like taking a look at that there. Yeah. Kansas has just been, it seems like it's kind of gotten progressively the wrong direction. You kind of thought at some point, hey, are they going to figure it out? But it hasn't. They've turned the ball over a ton. I think maybe the season, being the way it is, playing at all kinds of different places, hasn't been great for them either. But that's going to be interesting to see how their season closes the rest of the way. I know you got another underdog pick, but I'll throw this one out there real quick just because I think this is going to be a shootout game. Arizona, Colorado. At this point, I'm sad to say I kind of think Colorado might win this game. I wouldn't have said that a few weeks ago, but I do think no matter what happens, they're both going to score a lot of points. The defenses are not going to win the day here in this one. Both passing games, I think, will have their fair share of success. 58.5. So it is a fairly large number, but not insurmountable. So I'm going to go the overs in that game. I look to see that one kind of be the track meet that you expect.
The last pick here, and for my, hoping the way it turns out the way I'd like, I was hoping it'd be like a Friday night, one of those Friday night wacky games we've been talking about, or even 11 a.m. there right away and on BTN, but that's not going to be the case. Michigan State and Iowa. Michigan State's a 5.5 point underdog, similar to Houston there. I guess 5.5 just looked good to me this week. Maybe that's what it was, but basically, I think it's going to be ugly, and in this case, that favors Michigan State. We talked about on the podcast this week that how just Iowa scoring 40 was kind of like, everybody was kind of like, oh, I don't see that happening again. And just based upon recent history between these teams, it always seems to be kind of like that. 17-13, maybe 21-17, even a 10-7, something like that. It's always just kind of one of those, like, not if it's not one of your teams, you're probably not watching it, that type of game. So I think that's going to be the case again. And they could, with the pick we're going to make here, they could still go down, like a 10-7, and we'll be good with that because I'm going to go ahead and take the points. Same thing with Houston, though. I wouldn't be surprised just because Iowa has actually, I mean, record wise, they've looked good and posted good performances, but I don't know how good that they actually are, all record aside.
Yeah, this will be a good test for them for sure, and it's be a tough, like you said, historically, kind of that rivalry, that series has been close games. That's what they play typically. So, yeah, I don't hate taking a peek at that too. I will say just a couple of other games I had an eye on that I didn't put into my kind of top 5 here for this week, but I love the way that Army's been playing, and they're only laying 16 against East Carolina. I would consider going that route in that game, and then also. I do like SMU laying 16.5 against Stanford. They are on the road, but Stanford's been kind of rough here lately, so I think that that's one to play. And then I would never, I don't do this just because of a rule, but if that line stays at 13.5 for Iowa State at home at night against UCF, I would be pretty confident in saying that the Clones are going to cover just the way that they played lately. They've closed games really well in the fourth quarter. So if it stays under 2 touchdowns, that's one that I would probably play. If it goes above that, I wouldn't go there, but I like it where it's at right now.
Yeah, a couple of, I guess we'll talk about the Friday night deal. Duke's minus 3-point favorites at Florida State. I think they can cover that easy. That's one I like as well. And we talked about that big number. I'd been dogging on Clemson, so I couldn't do it to them. But they're, a 21-point favorite or around there, 20.5, depending on which book you look at. That still is a pretty healthy number against a decent Virginia team. And then lastly, just one of those kind of sicko games. Watch that total on Wisconsin Northwestern. It's 41. Wisconsin's put up some points, but I don't know if those two teams, just like we said with Iowa, Michigan State, if they can, if they're going to be able to kind of just, do a back and forth affair here. I think, with that nice little, those little dual stands by that little lake there. I don't know if a lot of points are going to be scored with that crazy Chicago wind there.
Yeah, yeah, not exactly your offensive juggernaut game for sure. So that's what we're looking at here this week. Feel free to hit us up if you have some ideas on some plays here this weekend. We'd love to hear from you. You see the handles there on Twitter at Cherokee CP, at SJM Bets. That's how you can find us and let us know what you're playing, or talk about maybe some groupings of picks that you love as well. We'd always like to hear about that. And of course, we'd love if you would subscribe, get the notifications here on the YouTube channel for the picks each week, and then also listen to the podcast each week. Usually comes out either late Sunday night or early Monday morning into the midday. We'll get it to you and kind of recap what happened from the games the week before. And that's available on all the major podcast platforms, including our host at Spotify. So make sure you check it out. That's SJ Munoz. I'm Chris Parks. Thanks for joining us for another week of picks here on Every Day We're Covering. We'll see you next round for some more covers.